These are the softwares that we installed for our project LPG gas leakage detection. Go to the official website raspberry.org, then go to downloads and click the Raspbian. Then download the Raspbian stretch with desktop. It will be downloaded as a zip file, then extract it. This is all about Raspbian download. Then we'll install SD card formatter from the official website sdcard.org. This is for formatting the SD card. Here, click here to download the SD card memory formatter. From this software you can format it. Then we'll install Angry IP Scanner from the sourceforce.net. Click download to download the Angry IP Scanner, and then the software gets downloaded. After that we'll download Putty from the official website of putty.org. Click the first link. You'll be directed to a page. Press here so that you can download the Putty software.
Go.
Now we'll download Win32 disk imager. This is used to mount the Raspbian to the memory card. From this Win32 disk imager software, we'll copy all the Raspbian file that is downloaded directly into the memory card from the link given here. This is from sourceforce.net. Download this software. This is the circuit which we have worked for the LPG gas leakage detection. It contains a Raspberry Pi board and a breadboard and MCP 3008 analog to digital converter and 5 volt to 3.3 volt logic level converter and a MQ2 sensor to detect LPG, smoke and CO. First, the Raspberry Pi has a Ethernet cable slot and a power supply slot and memory card slot which we use, and also it has GPIO pins for the connection of the jumper wires from Raspberry Pi to breadboard as well as to MQ2 sensor. And MQ2 sensor is connected to the breadboard as well as the Raspbian Pi. The Raspberry Pi board looks like a motherboard with the mounted chips and ports exposed, but it has all the components you need to connect input, output and storage devices and start computing. The various components on the Raspberry Pi board are ARM CPU or GPU, GPIO pins, RCA, audio out, LEDs, USB, HDMI, power supply, SD card slot and Ethernet cable. The GPIO pins are for input and output connection purpose. ARM CPU or GPU is a Broadcom system on a chip that's made of an ARM central processing unit and a video core 4 graphics processing unit. The CPU handles all the computations that makes a computer work, and the GPU handles the graphics output. RCA. An RCA jack allows the connection of analog TVs and other similar output devices. Audio out. This is a standard 3.55mm jack for connection of audio output devices such as headphones or speakers. There is no audio in. LEDs, light emitting diodes for all of your indicator light needs. USB. This is a common connection port for peripheral devices of all types including your mouse and keyboard. Model A has one, Model B has two. You can use a USB hub to expand the number of ports or plug your mouse into your keyboard if it has its own USB port. HDMI. This connector allows you to hook up a high definition television or other compatible device using a HDMI cable. Power. This is a 5-volt micro USB power connector into which you can plug your compatible power supply. SD card slot. This is a full-sized SD card slot. An SD card with an operating OS installed is required for booting the device. They are available for purchase from the manufacturers, but you can download an OS and save it to the card yourself if you have a Linux machine and the wherewithal. Ethernet. This allows for wide network access and is only available on the Model B. Specifications of MQ2 sensor. There are 4 pins in MQ2 sensor. They are VCC, ground pin, digital out and analog out. VCC is the pin powers to the module. Typically the operating voltage is 5 volt. Ground is used to connect the module to the system ground. Digital out is you can also use this sensor to get digital output from this pin by setting a threshold value using a potentiometer. Analog out is the 4th pin. This pin outputs 0 to 5 volt analog voltage based on the intensity of the gas. The MQ2 sensor is used to measure methane, butane, LPG as well as smoke. Where to use MQ2 gas sensor? The MQ2 gas sensor can detect or measure gases like LPG, alcohol, propane, hydrogen, CO and even methane. This module version of this sensor comes with a digital pin which makes this sensor to operate even without a microcontroller, and that comes in handy when you are only trying to detect one particular gas. When it comes to measuring the gas in the ppm, the analog pin has to be used. The analog pin is also TTL driven and works on 5 volt and hence can be used with most common microcontrollers. So if you are looking for a sensor to detect or measure gases like LPG, alcohol, propane, hydrogen, CO and even methane with or without microcontroller, then this sensor might be a better choice for you. The applications of MQ2 sensor are detects or measures gases, air quality monitoring, gas leak alarm, safety standard maintenance, and this can be used for maintaining environment standards in the hospitals. Another component in our project is 5 volt to 3.3 volt logic level converter. The Raspberry Pi GPIO pins works with 3.3 logic levels and are not 5 volt tolerant. If you apply 5 volt to a GPIO pin, you risk permanently damaging it. However, you can easily use 5 volt sensors or modules if you convert their 5 volt outputs to 3.3 using a level shifter. This ensures the GPIO pins on the Pi only see a maximum of 3.3 volt. These shifters are usually bidirectional so that they can also be used to allow the Pi to trigger a 5 volt input with its 3.3 volt outputs. Typical level shifter module. A level shifter, also known as logic level converter, will take the 5 volt signals and convert them to 3.3 volt. This allows the Raspberry Pi to read outputs from the sensors that are only happening being powered from 5 volt. The modules are cheap and often provide 4 to 8 channels. The channels consist of pair of pins labeled HV1 or LV1, HV2 or LV2, etc. The HV stands for high value and LV stands for low value. Channel 1 consists of LV1 and HV1. Channel 2 is LV2 and HV2 and etc. These are also 2 pins which must be provided with reference voltages so that the module understands what our high and low values are. MCP 3008. The Raspberry Pi do not have analog inputs, which means that you cannot get the analog inputs with Raspberry Pi. But we can overcome this problem by using the analog to digital converter, which help in the interfacing the analog sensors with the Raspberry Pi. MCP 3008 is a 10-bit 8-channel analog to digital converter which uses the SPI bus protocol and allows you to get the analog inputs with Raspberry Pi. It is cheap and do not require any additional components with it. It gives you 8 analog inputs and it uses just 4 pins of Raspberry Pi excluding the power and ground pins. MCP3008 is a 10-bit DC, so it will give us output up to 2 to the power 10, that is 1024. So the output will be range from 0 to 1023, where 0 means 0 volt and 1023 means 3.3 volt. The pin in MCP3008, one is DGND, digital ground pin for the chip, CS is for chip select, DIN, data input from the Raspberry, DOUT is the data output pin, clock is the clock pin, AGND is analog ground pin, VREF is the analog reference voltage, connect to 3.3 volt. You can change if you want to change the scale. VDD is the power pin for the chip. The pin 1 of MCP3008 starts from the below the half circle you can see in the pin diagram. MCP3008 ADC has a total of 16 pins, out of which 8 pins are taking the analog input. The analog input pins are from CH0 to CH7. This is our LPG leakage gas detection using Raspberry Pi. This is the circuit. This is the Raspberry Pi, and this is the Ethernet cable, and this is the USB cable connected to it, and there is a memory card SIM slot behind the Raspberry Pi. These are the jumper wires, and this is the buzzer, and this is the voltage converter, and the back one is ADC converter. It converts analog to digital signals, and this is our gas leakage sensor detector. This is gas sensor MQ2. As soon as the LPG gas gets detected by the MQ2 sensor, the buzzer will make buzz sound so that the person nearby can realize that LPG gas is detected, so that he can take some necessary actions to control that. Open control panel and then network sharing center, then go to connections, go to properties, go to sharing, make sure both are selected, then close that, and then open Angry IP scanner. The IP range will be displayed there. In that, click start button. The IP addresses will be listed there. It will take time so that all the IP address will be loaded. Scanning is completed, close that, and check where the Raspberry Pi was given the IP address. Here 192.168.137.42 is given the IP address for the Raspberry Pi. Then open PuTTY. Type the same IP address 192.168.137.42 and then click open. Click yes. Type the login as Pi. The password is Raspberry, RASPBERRY. Then press enter. Type VNC server. And then the one will be shown on that. Then open VNC server. Type the same IP address 192.168.137.42 in that VNC server address box. One 192.168.137.42 colon the value that we obtained in that putty screen 1, you type the same colon 1 and then press enter, then press continue, then type the password as PASSWORD, then click OK. Now open the terminal of Raspberry Pi. Now you give the path of your Python file and the file. The Raspberry Pi starts calibrating the values, and in a short while the LPG value and CO value and smoke value will be detected and shown on the screen. Now the LPG value and CO value and smoke value got detected. This is without flame. This is usually in a normal air condition where no much LPG and CO and smoke exists. Now the value keeps changing as the value of that CO and smoke in the air and LPG is not constant always. As soon as the LPG gas gets detected by the MQ2 sensor, the buzzer will make buzz sound so that the person nearby can realize that LPG gas is detected, so that he can take some necessary actions to control that. Now the lighter is on so that the smoke got detected. As the smoke got detected, the LPG values keep changing drastically, also CO and also smoke, so that the person can observe that there is a smoke or the LPG gas leakage, so that he can take some further actions so that he can rescue it.